The player who inspired this whole who is the best player in the league series to begin with was Giannis Antetokounmpo. So while I'd already talked about Giannis's case kind of briefly in a video a while ago, I figured now was the time to make a dedicated video to him for this series. Giannis's 2021 championship run finally shut up his doubters, and as a result, people are finally willing to give Giannis the title of best in the league. However, as someone who wasn't a doubter and always thought Giannis had his name in that convo, his run didn't have some incredibly profound impact on how I viewed him. Really, he proved me right, not wrong, so there wasn't some major change in how I rank Giannis from that run. And as a result, I'm actually frankly a little frustrated with how wishy-washy people have proved to be with this conversation with Giannis in particular. Because while on the other end they wouldn't admit he was in the conversation previous, now it's like he's some unquestioned number one choice. So as someone who I think has a more level-headed and non-recency biased influence opinion on Giannis, I wanted to talk about his case for being the best player in the NBA, so let's do it. I'm done doing the 50% subscribed versus not subscribed thing because whatever. Look, if you're watching this video, you're not subscribed to the channel. I'm trying to hit 200k subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be appreciated. Like, seriously, just subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I said it twice. That's how much I appreciate it. Also, drop a like on this video. There is a reason YouTubers ask you to like the video. It's really helpful. So that is all much appreciated. I need another word for that, apparently. Also, real quick, by the time this video goes up, episode 4 of my NBA series should be out now. So if you have been following that series, then go check that video out. And if you haven't and you're interested, it is a realistic rebuild series going over the Dallas Mavericks. It is not the typical 2K series. It's scripted and it's trying to be as real as possible and taking every little detail into account. So please go check that out if you haven't already, and check out episode 4 if you've been keeping up with the series. So first things first, with Giannis's case for being the best player in the league is that he is the best two-way player in the league. To put it simply, there is no player in the game who is as impactful on both ends of the floor as Giannis is. There are players more offensively impactful, guys like Steph, KD, Harden, Luka, or Jokic, but those guys don't have the defense that Giannis does, and there's really only one guy that I'd consider a better defender than Giannis, and that is Bam Adebayo, but of course he's not as good of an offensive player as Giannis, and even the names that you could give me as better defenders than Giannis, though I would disagree, I definitely wouldn't say there are better offensive players. So as far as two-way play is concerned, Giannis is easily my pick for the best two-way player in the game. And to a lot of people, the title of best two-way player might as well just be the title of the best player, especially if you're taking offensive and defensive impact into consideration, because talent and impact are not necessarily one and the same. Like, Kawhi might be as good defensively as Giannis in terms of pure talent, but he's not as impactful because he's a perimeter defender rather than a more all-around defender with elite interior ability on top of perimeter ability. However, I've never been one to make the two-way player equals best player argument, because sometimes a player can be so impactful offensively that it can make up for a difference between him and another player's defense, even with a vastly better defender. The concrete, though to an extreme, but probably extreme to prove the point example, is Lonzo Ball versus Steph Curry. Yeah, Lonzo is a better two-way player, he's a miles better defender, and he's a good offensive player as well. However, no shit, he's not better than Steph. Even keeping Steph as the example, I think Steph's offensive impact is so significantly higher than Giannis's that he has a case for being better than Giannis, even though Giannis, to me, is the second best defender in the game, and Steph is just kind of whatever on that end. I think other guys in the best player in the league conversation can make that argument as well, like Luka, Harden, Jokic, Durant, and etc. And that's not to say that Giannis is not extremely offensively impactful. I just think there is a small handful of names that I would give an edge over him in that category. But all of that said, being the best two-way player in the league, while I do not believe it is the end-all be-all, it is certainly not a bad starting point in this conversation. Now, another argument that I detest and have brought up a couple of times now in this series, but really in particular stands out with the case of Giannis, is the idea that the title of best player in the league is something that is earned by a championship run. Like Kawhi in 2019, he earned the title of best player in the league, and in 2020, LeBron earned the title back back. And in 2021, Giannis earned the title for himself, when really LeBron was just the best player in 2019 as well. The circumstances just didn't go his way, and they did for Kawhi. And being the best, while the playoffs can be a huge indicator of it, is just, at the end of the day, simply being the best. I've said a few times now in this series that being the best player in the league is as simple as being the best basketball player. It has nothing to do with those other things. Those could be an indicator of it, but the question is, who do you think is better at basketball, not who most recently went on a championship run as the best player on that team. Giannis's case is not inherently better than Kawhi or Steph's or whoever's just because he's the most recent to go on a championship run. But now that I've examined the pro Giannis takes and pointed out some of the bullshit that comes with those, let me look on the other end for the anti-Giannis takes, because there's plenty of bullshit there as well. The main one is the knock on his shot creation and the idea that he is a Robin. I've said this already, but I plan on making a deep dive on this one day, but Giannis might very well be the main example of how flawed the notion of clutchness is to the average NBA fan. To so many, clutchness is hitting a tween hezzy splash mid-range shot, and that's essentially it. A great pass or defensive play, or hell, scoring a fucking layup apparently isn't even properly credited. Or you can take it to another extreme and be Skip Bayless and start calling making shots lucky to dismiss it, which is a whole nother garbage can of worms. But, to put it simply, so I don't go on a long rant, especially because I'm saving this for the deep dive, clutchness is a whole lot more than hitting a game-winning jump shot, and the notion that Giannis is inherently a Robin because he isn't hitting fadeaways in the lane, even though he did it in Game 6 of the finals a lot, but whatever, is incredibly flawed and just downright stupid. But you know, what else would you expect from a Kendrick Perkins talking point? Carry the hell on. I've never seen anyone try harder to force a catchphrase in my life. Where the criticism does become valid is in the shooting, and in particular free throw shooting. Because I believe Giannis is best utilized as a center, and I think that was proven over and over again in the playoffs, I don't think his lack of an outside shot is as important as some might act. In fact, his lack of shooting ability became less of a problem as he simply took less jumpers. He got his just fine taking less outside shots, but at the end of the day, it is a weakness and something that requires putting the proper personnel around him for him to succeed. However, at the same time, nearly every player needs that, and it's really not that much of a knock. Really, I think the best way to evaluate how good a player is by putting that perfect team around them without taking it too far to where it's just this insane amount of talent. Like, sure, Steph needs a great defense and a secondary playmaker and score, but once you give him that, I mean, you know what he does. And I don't think you can hold it against players for not having that good supporting cast, just like I don't think you can hold it against them for having it. Really, that should be the expectation, and the best way to evaluate a player is when they're at that point. So while I guess that could be a knock against him, he had the right team built around him and he won as a result, and I don't think that's really a criticism, and if it is, it's not one that you couldn't put against literally any other player in this conversation. The free throw shooting thing, however, is really the bigger flaw to me, because while you might say a jumper would make Giannis quote-unquote unstoppable, I'd argue him being an elite free throw shooter would actually do it, because with someone who will either get a bucket or a foul nearly every time he steps inside of the paint, if he's shooting 85+% from the line, that's raps. I did the math, and Giannis would average 1.6 more points per game in the regular season if he shot 85% from the line, which also means his team's points per game would go up by that in the games that he has played, and in the playoffs he would average 2.5 more points per game. So that makes a big difference, especially spanning over 100 games. So that's really, to me, his biggest problem. There's also the fact that he isn't the greatest playmaker. He's a pretty good one, but there's plenty of names in this conversation you could say are better at it. In fact, all but Kawhi maybe, and perhaps Kevin Durant are probably better there, so there's that. Which is grasping at straws, but as I said in the Kevin Durant video in this series, you kind of have to grasp at straws to make determinations between so many incredibly talented players. So that's my thoughts on Giannis' case for being the best in the league. Personally, for me, he is among the top contenders for the title. The next few episodes are going to be talking about some guys who are a little bit more on the outside of the conversation, but still in the conversation nonetheless. Again, go check out that My NBA series if you haven't already, and episode 4 if you've been keeping up with the series. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but at the end of this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.